Along the outside corridor. Secretarial stations. Very small reception area here. Another meeting room. And we have our accounting department.
Most people coming to go to the second floor.
Yeah, well, a majority of our lawyers are on the second floor.
Mm-hmm. And it must be, so you don't like to cook. Well, that's, a career woman isn't supposed to cook.
No, I don't.
That's right. What do you do? Tell us who you are.
Well, I'm Linda Bennett, and I work for the Olive Waller, Zinkin and Waller Law Firm as their legal administrator. And that primarily consists of business management.
Mm-hmm. Can you say that 3 times fast?
Which part? Olive Waller, Zinkin and Waller, Olive Wallers.
That's pretty good.
Law offices.
I even faxed it to you as Zinkum.
Oh, I know. Most people get that wrong.
Well, I've got it right now. I changed it because a person should, especially if we're going to be talking to them, we better call them the right name. Yeah. It's Fred Zinkin, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then who are the other lawyers?
Oh, we have 17.
But I mean, like in that partnership.
We have Wilson Olive.
Wilson Olive.
Tom Waller.
Tom Waller.
Fred Zinkin.
Fred Zinkin.
And Bob Waller.
Are they like brothers? Or?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
The 2 Wallers are brothers, and Tom Waller and Will Olive are brother-in-laws.
Wow, okay. A bit of a family affair.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother
works very nicely, too.
Mm-hmm. Good. My brother works for the provincial government, and he knows Tom Waller. I guess he's he's lived in Regina for about 15 years or more. And his wife has also used it for all her legal services. Gord, yeah. Right. He works at the Ledge. He's in the policy secretariat or something, whatever they call it.
Right. Well, I've only been here actually in the country for 2 years, so really? I don't know all that many people.
Where'd you come from?
Princeton, New Jersey.
Oh, so you're American, or are you Canadian?
You
lived in the U.S.
No, I'm American.
Oh yeah, well, that's interesting. Huh? What? You're with? Oh. So that's where you studied, and that's where you got your education?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is an automatic question, except for the odd reference to Saskatchewan in Mountie movies. How did you ever get plunked down here?
My husband. I met him in Boston.
Okay. And he was from here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, he's from Calgary, but he's relocated here 30-some years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good reason.
Mm-hmm. I've been in legal management for 14 years, so that I did have behind me.
We're in Boston as well?
No, actually in Princeton. Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay.
We are getting a fair amount of error.
Oh.
So, you know.
That's okay. We can turn that right off.
Is that possible?
Yeah, it's right outside the door.
So I guess that means since you're married to a Canadian, that means you're Canadian too, I guess, in some ways.
Oh, yeah.
You're both, eh?
Yeah, yeah. I have permanent residency status here.
Uh-huh. Great.
So, yeah.
Well, welcome to Canada.
Oh, thank you.
I lived here years ago. But
I'm getting to see a lot of Canada, too. It's a really beautiful country. Yeah, I've been to BC. I'm going to Banff on Thursday.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's where we have our Christmas party.
In Banff.
We go up to Banff, yeah, stay there. Well, we're about an hour's drive from there. So, yeah, well, it's the Rockies, eh? Not much you can say.
Well, I haven't seen them yet. I've been to Calgary. I've seen them from the foothills, but that's about it.
You're right in the middle of them. Yeah. Hopefully you don't have claustrophobia because the mountains are right there as you look like that. But it's got to be great. Well, so what else do you do in Regina? Do you have children?
No, I have 2 children back on the East Coast, and they're in university. Mm-hmm. My husband has worked here in the city, has a college, and he's a craniologist, and we do a bit of traveling because of his work. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. So was this position here at Olive Waller, Waller, was that something that became available after you moved here? Or
yeah, I looked for work soon after relocating, and this position became available, and I applied, and thank goodness they held it open for me for 6 months.
Oh, excellent. And well, I'd be interested in hearing in your own words then, what exactly are they? Like it's sort of a layman's job description of what you do.
Well, it's an executive director type of position. Do a little bit of everything. I handle most of the administrative matters of the office, and I work with the partners in management, long-range planning, projections, marketing, human resources. Some of the technology as far as the equipment is concerned. Do all of the purchases of equipment.
And like we found out this morning, payroll as well.
Prepare the payroll and the budget.
Okay, well, you also mentioned, keeping the office going in terms of the equipment you use here. Tell me a bit about that and basically what I'm just trying to get at is maybe leading into why you have the phone system you do in this office, sort of thing.
Well, it's quite interesting. When I was interviewing for the position, part of my interview process included some of the areas I had touched in previous firms, and one of the areas was the ability to be able to purchase the best equipment for the best price. And I was informed at that time, well, you really won't be getting the best price because there's a monopoly and you'd only get one price and one type of equipment. And interestingly enough, at the time that we needed to purchase new equipment, our firm here, our lease had been running up, quite a bit of new technology had been introduced in the province. And just so happens that the Northstar equipment was the equipment that had just been newly introduced. And the value was just, well, it was just quite incredible. I mean, we were able to go away from a PBX system into a key system, allowing us to utilize the service without paying the high price. And from my understanding and what I've been recently learning, we will be able to grow with, the system will grow with us. As our needs grow, the system will be able to grow with us.
Well, in terms of needs like that you have here in a 17 lawyer office, 40 staff, what would you say some of the needs are now, and what are you going to grow into?
Well, at some point in the future, we'd like to be able to have direct dial in our phone system. And it's my understanding that this is the first key system allowing to expand into a direct dial rather than a PBX, which, by the way, is twice the cost. And we also, as we are a law firm, we do like to recover costs. And I understand working at this time with the line display and the I think it's called a Module 5, we will be able to progress into the ability to charge our calls directly into our computer system, thus allowing for chargeback to the clients of the cost of the telephone calls, also helping in the timekeeping for the lawyers.
Well, lawyers are like, humans like anyone else. I guess remembering every single phone call you make and remembering to enter it is like anyone else. Like, just, it's hard to be 100% thorough.
Oh, absolutely. Not to mention the fact that the receptionist taking paper notes is a bit archaic, and when you take into consideration it's 1992 and the technology that exists, we're still shooting pieces of paper across the office.
Mm-hmm. How would you anticipate a phone system being able to help you get rid of all this paper?
Oh, I think that the ability to leave messages, take messages, return phone calls all on your telephone system would be quite helpful.
Those type of features are something you'd really look at in incorporating?
Those features are actually being made available right now. We have it in the system that we're using now. Mm-hmm.
If you could just give me a few more specifics, I'd like to talk about the call line display that you use, that you have already hooked up in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd just like to hear what your impressions of, how does it work in your office? Like, what does it mean to your office? I don't want to hear about all the technology of it, but what does it mean to you?
Well, for instance, I received a phone message yesterday on my phone. The phone told me that I had a call that had been logged into the log system. So I just went over to the phone and pushed a couple of buttons, and it told me the telephone number, the time of the call, the date of the call, and I was able to determine that it was my husband who had called me, for instance. And as I was looking through this, I picked up the telephone receiver, and the phone started dialing. I didn't do anything except pick up the receiver. That was it. And it was able to go back and make the call for me.
I didn't know it did that either.
I didn't either. I was just playing around with it.
Yeah. So in other words, it knows that if you pick up the receiver,
while you're reviewing that log on that phone number, it'll just call it directly.
Well, geez, I didn't know. They never told me that. I guess that's probably something that people tell me a bit about people in the office using these phones. What about the training that's needed to get people to know how to use this thing?
Well, since this is a test site, I'm not quite sure I can quantify that in the sense that I don't know that we've received quite enough training yet. But the system is so user friendly. As I say, just yesterday, playing around with it, I was able to determine a lot of things that it will do and won't do. I was able to erase a message I no longer needed. The system gave me an option to look at more, to go to the next piece of information regarding that telephone call, or to trim it or erase it. So it's basically user-friendly, and will give you the information right on the system itself. I think that another interesting part about the system is speaking to people who might not always be honest and giving you information. Working in a law firm, that happens, I think, from time to time, and it's interesting how some of the lawyers in my firm have been able to determine that people stating that they're calling from one place and looking at their telephone, realizing they're actually not calling from that area. They've been able to retrieve a little bit of information if they needed to get back to a person.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like that could be of some value here. Mm-hmm. I know this may be a hard question, and if you don't know, of course you don't know. Do you have any feeling of this feature that you talked about, of being able to see the phone number and then be able to dial it if you want to?
Mm-hmm. You didn't have to dial it; you just picked up the phone.
What kind of benefit is that to a law firm in terms of? Do you see that having any kind of time savings? Any
Sure.
Can you give it any quantity?
Absolutely. Lawyers have a tendency to work during the day with a lot of people. They're working with their staff. They're working with their clients. They're working with other lawyers. They're working with judges. They're constantly on the go from 9 to 5 or 8 to 6. But very often lawyers also work at night, or weekends, and I can very honestly see lawyers coming in, picking up all of their calls in the log, and making phone calls. Well, heck, they don't have to do a thing. They just push 3 buttons, and they'd be able to go through their entire list of all the people that have called them during the day, and if they'd like to make the call, as I indicated, just pick up the receiver. Mm-hmm. It certainly is a time saving. They don't have to go through notes and try to find the phone number, and maybe, maybe it's actually incorrect. Maybe something's been recorded incorrectly.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, call log. I'd just like you to talk a bit about maybe a little bit about the future, and in terms of what would you see a phone system like this if it was, do you see any benefit maybe of it being to interface with
Absolutely, with a computer?
Just tell me a bit about that.
I think that I personally can see it working in 2 directions. The ability to trace and record the call itself, as well as the cost involved, and then also, of course, the time spent by the lawyer, because the time is dollars as well. It's a service industry. And I can see the savings of, number 1, a lawyer having to record the time, number 2, the secretary having to type it into the system, and all of the errors that could occur in between. With the kind of system the direction that this system seems to be going in, it's a matter of just interfacing directly with the computer, and no one has to do anything except maybe decrease some of the costs involved at the time of billing. But it's always been my belief, you don't make billing decisions at the time of recording. You do that at the time of billing. And so this would save a lot of time wasted, both in errors and making decisions that shouldn't ordinarily be made at that time.
In your job, of course, you also deal with all the clerical staff here, mm-hmm. not just the lawyers.
Right.
What experiences have you had in terms of the phone usage within the non-lawyer staff here?
Well, we're in we have a situation here in this office whereby our secretaries do not ordinarily take the calls of the lawyers, although we are encouraging the receptionists at this time to do that. And as we go along doing that, it has been very beneficial for us. and as time goes on, I personally see that our firm will be doing more and more of that. I think that the client doesn't necessarily need to speak with the lawyer each time they make a call. The receptionist or the secretary that works with that lawyer probably can answer quite a bit of the client's questions. And the secretaries seem to have a little more time to spend working with something like a telephone. I think lawyers just want to be able to pick it up and make a phone call.
Yeah, well, that's
although there are many lawyers who do enjoy the technology and like.
Isn't that really what a phone is there for? Is to talk to people that aren't in the room, and that I think sometimes people forget that that's what the bottom line of a phone is, and the rest is all kind of dressing that maybe makes it a little easier, right?
Right.
Okay, stop tape.